And I see that, and go ahead and start streaming if you could. And we'll just waiting on the streaming to start. I'll start I guess the formalities here. I see that we're recording and we're in the process of getting the live stream set up. I'd like to welcome you and call to order the April 13th, 2021 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. And pursuant to the governor's order, the stay home and stay safe order, the city council will be conducting this meeting via Zoom. And links for tonight's meeting were posted on our webpage, also published on the agenda, as well as call-in numbers for the public to participate in this evening's meeting. So at this time, I would ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. So Brandy, if you could put the flag up. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, let's set our agenda. Councilmember Cacciardi, you have something to add?
Yeah, we need to add an item to the consent agenda, item number H, and it would be the excusal of Council Member Rosa Pepe due to personal obligations.
Second.
A motion and a second to excuse Councilmember Rosa Pepe for personal reasons. Any discussion? All in favor of adding that to the consent agenda as item H, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? That item has been added to the consent agenda. Are there any other modifications, additions, subtractions proposed to tonight's agenda? Councilmember Clausen?
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Clausen and a second by Councilmember Cacciardi to approve the agenda as modified. Any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been set for this evening. We are to our first citizen comment period, and it is for any item on this evening's agenda. There's a second citizens comment period at the end of the meeting for all other items. And if you wish to be acknowledged, please use the raise your hand feature, and Clerk Reinerson will acknowledge you, bring you into elevate you into the meeting with us. And then she will be manning a 3-minute timer at 30 seconds. She'll give you a heads up that you've got 30 seconds remaining, and then she will be turning off your microphone and then moving on to the next person thereafter. So Clerk Reinerson, is there anyone wishing to acknowledge or comment on this evening?
Yes, Mayor, I have two have their hands raised, so I will bring the first one in.
Perfect, thank you. And if you could just identify yourself for the record when you're elevated.
Am I on?
Yes, you are. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Robert McGee, 2065 Bay Street. Thanks for letting me address you guys in the council. So I'll begin. I know we've got strong disagreements about the pathway. That's well known. But the fiscal use of taxpayer funds that's being floated to stopgap the millions in shortfalls right now seems pretty irresponsible. The pathway was touted on being grant funded, and now with this staggering $8 million price tag that's come up on it, it falls conservatively short of $4 million in funds. The council is now willing to risk local taxpayer dollar resources into the pathway, as well as floating the idea of borrowing using asset leverage, which should be reserved for catastrophic emergencies, which could cost the local taxpayers millions in long-term debt and a loss of financial leverage for dire emergencies. This trajectory puts an amenity over real needs like the water and the wells and the sewer projects and the roundabout projects, the Bethel corridor, and many of the other capital projects that are furthering the shortfalls. The city infrastructure deficiencies have caused some issues with work stoppage moratoriums, lawsuits, which costs millions of dollars to the community, and those aren't even really accounted for. At minimum, it seems like there's a $35 million shortfall, which appears to leave still a lot unaccounted for. The council now has an opportunity to pause the pathway, which the mayor has indicated will more than likely not require payback other than the homes that were bought on speculation for mitigation, which can still be applied to other projects, of course. Pausing the pathway would also be offsetting costs by not funding this evening the tier right-of-way services large change order, which is going to assess the $1,813,000, which I agree is pretty enormous. And that's funded by the capital street funds, which are going to be exceeded as well by funding that. This would nearly cover the expenses to actually remediate the homes purchased, not even accounting for the real dollar asset value that you'll own in mitigation. Pausing will also give time for the city to address the community concerns of the pathway, and it also will allow the city to focus on funding real community needs that don't burden the local taxpayer with unneeded additional debt or wasteful spending. I urge the council to consider pausing the pathway, canceling the contract with TR Right-of-Way and saving those funds, and focus on these infrastructure needs like sewer and water that are really desperately needed for the growth that is happening. And I know you guys are, very aware of it. So I just implore you to be fiscally prudent with the taxpayer dollars, put the community first. It is their checkbook, and you guys are certainly entrusted with it. And thank you for letting me address you tonight.
Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment. Go ahead and elevate the next person, Brandy. Oops. I don't think Mr. Nail is here to speak in public comment. He's.
I think I'm here now. I just got in.
Yep. We'll leave you here, Dee. You're our presenter here, your first presentation. So. Oops.
Okay. Thank you. So.
You can just turn your video. We're not ready. We're not ready for you though. Just go ahead and turn your video off. I'll call you on in a minute, but this is the public comment period of the meeting.
Okay. Sorry.
Okay, Brandy, is there anyone else wishing to provide public comment?
No one else has their hand raised.
Perfect. Okay. We will close the public comment portion, the first public comment portion of our meeting, and we will move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended? Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Amended.
Sorry.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Lucarelli to approve the consent agenda as amended. For any discussion of the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Now we're to presentations. Mr. Nail, Housing Kitsap has a need. We have a fabulous self-help program. Serve on the board, as you know, of Housing Kitsap, and the cost of construction escalating the way it has presented a problem to Mr. Nail's self-help housing program. So Dean's here to talk to you a little bit about the program and what the need is. And if I see heads nodding, we might propose to put some of our $1,406 that should be going to rental assistance. And there's just so many other dollars and resources that have short time fuses on them to use that the other agencies out there are utilizing. So with that, Mr. Nail, if you would like to share some information with the City Council.
Yeah, so thanks for having me tonight. We do run a self-help program at Housing Kitsap. We've been doing this since the 70s, actually, and housed 1,500 plus homes throughout all of Kitsap and even into Mason County. So at the start of each group, we obviously budget for construction, and we get the current bids and pricing of permits and different things and put that all together, and then we send this to USDA for construction loan as the budget for our families, right? And of course, this takes some time. Sometimes it could be potentially 8 months before we actually start construction, that we put the budget together. And we always take that into account. We have a long history of what it takes to build and what we project it will cost to build. And we did increase these loans approximately 10,000 over the previous group, which was in Kitsap County, but also in Port Orchard. Very similar plans. And we are currently, due to COVID, as you've heard, I'm sure, on the news, lumber's up 188% since this time last year and continues to rise. Really, all things considered, construction have increased. And while we think we did a pretty good job of budgeting, we certainly didn't expect all of the increases. And we are, roughly, if you average the 9 that are in construction, they're roughly about $3,000 over. And that's our prediction today. And we don't have a crystal ball, so but we think we're pretty close to that. And I had asked the mayor for $30,000 if it's available.
So Dean, if you could educate us too a little bit. I know I'm familiar with the program, but tell us about the self-help program and how it helps these families and what their responsibilities are.
Yeah, thank you. So how come everyone doesn't know what I do? So self-help housing, it is funded by USDA, and it is a first-time owner program. And so we have a supervisor on site that works with roughly 8, maybe 10 families. They work as a group and they share labor on each home. That's the mutual part of the self-help program. It's technically called mutual self-help. They mutually share in labor on all the homes in the group. And at the end of the day, they build their home. And to qualify for this program, they are, good, upstanding, working individuals in our community that just can't afford what seems to be now a $400,000 entry house. They're the folks working at, could be Safeway, could be Starbucks, could be the receptionist at the car lot dealer, could be potentially somebody at the city, Anyway, these folks they all have work history, they all have good credit. They just, they haven't found a way to get into the housing market. And this is a good opportunity for them. They have to spend 30+ hours a week on our job site, and they build the house. They're part of the foundation all the way to the landscaping. And we have a supervisor on site that works with them directly every day to make sure the houses don't look like Dr. Seuss's drawings.
So Dean even had me out there this last winter pounding nails for a day. So hopefully the walls are straight in that house. But
actually, the mayor's got good skills.
We'll see. But if you're not familiar with where this group of homes is, it's on Pottery Hill there off of Sherman at the 90-degree turn there. It's that group of homes that are kind of elevated from the street. So you have any questions of Dean about his program or the request before it?
What is the $30,000 that you're requesting is exactly for what?
It's cost overruns related to the increased cost of building materials on a group of 9 homes. So about $3,000 a house. And we have $55,000 in our self-help housing, in our 1406 fund that we have a contract with Kitsap Community Resources to provide rental assistance. And they have just been getting they've received a significant amount and continue to receive significant dollars from the federal government for rental assistance. And those dollars have very short time frames. They have to spend them and our dollars don't. So our dollars have been sitting idle. So I would propose that we spend, little more than half of those dollars that we've accumulated in the last little over a year, and help out Dean's program, because these families, correct me if I'm wrong, Dean, they barely qualify for these loans, and that this cost overruns would be an extreme hardship to these families.
Well, and yes, a lot of them just barely qualify. It all varies, of course, but many are not in a position to take on more debt. But the interesting part about that is USDA, they don't necessarily have a mechanism for overruns. They do, but it's not simple and it's not easy. And really, they put it on us to put that up front to make sure we cover these costs in the construction budget. For us to go back, we essentially have to go, it's not a construction and perm type loan, it is a permanent loan. So we don't have the opportunity to increase the loan amount. For us to do that through USDA, we essentially have to go back out for appraisal, repackage the entire loan, send it to them for approval, go through the entire process. And they're just not geared for it. And that, is another 3 to 4 months and a lot of headache. Not that it can't be done, but it's not something that we've ever done. But that is the option they're giving us today, because we're not the only ones that have, run into this problem and really throughout the nation.
So the money that you're asking for isn't for a loan or a grant. It's actually to cover cost overrun. My concern about this is it feels like it's a gifting of public funds. I'm not sure about that. I just don't quite know how this fits. Is this supposed to be a charitable donation?
Well,
I'm not understanding.
So is the rental assistance, though, that we're providing.
Yeah, but this goes towards paying for a mortgage, correct?
No.
It does not go for a mortgage.
No, just construction overruns. So their mortgage is set, and anything that exceeds that, this gap is what we're talking about. And so this money would just be used for the cost overruns. And we could, now the details haven't been worked out, but we have mechanisms to record up front. We have down payment assistance dollars that we can get through the block grant programs, and we record those on title. So these monies could be done the same way. And when paid back, we can determine where they need to go. If they want to come back to the city, or I guess that would be the right place. So they could come back to the city. In the event of the CDBG dollars, they go back to the county.
And what we experience there at Housing Kitsap is many times those dollars get written off. Those are loans that are, I would caution us to complicate this thing, but if that's the desire, we'll do it. But I think it would add a lot of complication to put liens on everybody's houses for a few $1,000s. But are there other questions? Councilmember Chang?
I'm sorry if I missed this in what Dean said earlier, but I know the 30,000 is probably a small amount compared to what each homeowner is already, I guess, putting up. But can you tell us like what percentage overrun it is? Like, is it 2% of their total project?
The average mortgage is at Sherman Ridge is about 250,000. So whatever percentage that is, $3,000.
3,000. Each one of them is getting about $3,000.
It's about 1%. And is each of those mortgages, is that paying for their share of construction? And I guess they're putting their own sweat equity into building their own home.
Correct. Yeah, we actually track all the costs individually per home. So some are a little bit more, some are a little bit less, but it's not like a bulk, costing or something. These are tracked costs per house.
Other questions or comments? Sir, Cindy seems lukewarm at best about this. I don't want to bring back an agreement if council isn't supportive of the idea. Council or Ms. Archer, you want to You have something you want to?
Sorry. Yes, thank you. To answer Councilmember LaCorley's question in part, obviously I can't speak to legal risk in an open public meeting, but the funding source that the mayor has requested would be your affordable housing sales tax credit funding, which is specifically allocated to be used for the acquiring, rehabilitation, or construction of affordable housing. So there is a nexus between that funding source and a project of this ilk. I thought that could help add context to this.
Councilmember Clausen, did you raise your hand?
Well, yes, I did, and she just answered my question for me. So with that, I'm fine with bringing forward an agreement.
Others have yay, nays? I'm not asking for a vote tonight, but just get kind of an indication where you feel about how you feel about this. Beck, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that understanding that we reserve those monies for affordable housing and the fact that we originally elected to put it in a rental assistance program, I thought was appropriate at the time. But as the mayor said, with the COVID situation, there are a lot of additional funds available for rental assistance that are time sensitive. And I kind of do a pause when I hear affordable housing at $250,000 a home, not including labor. So I personally am supportive. I think it would be beneficial to 9 to 10 families that we could help them get in their first home and hopefully put them on a path of financial security.
Okay. Councilmember Cacciardi?
Yeah, if maybe in the agreement, and I appreciate the presentation tonight, if we could just kind of hone in on some of the more specifics versus, kind of an average cost run of $3,000, 9 homes is 27, the ask is 30. Is there a way that maybe per home we could understand what the overages are, so we could kind of have more of an exact figure and fund those overruns as we know them per unit versus maybe an ask that's a little bit ambiguous? Again, I'm supportive of this. I want to make sure that the dollars that are provided are the exact dollars that are needed per residence.
And so to speak to that, right now the cost overruns are projections. We're still 3 months from being completed. And at that point, once all the subs have been paid and the last utility bill and such has been booked to the house, then we'll know exactly. And so today it is an estimate, and I do know that some are not over and some are over more than 3,000, and I think there's some that are close to 6. So I just as a general rule, that's an average I gave. And actually, to speak to the cost, affordable housing, what is affordable? Just for information, the land and permitting and construction of the house plans and engineering and things, everything it takes to get to the permit, not shoveling one piece of dirt, is $125,000 to $130,000. So we're building the house with the other half.
So with the similar products that are being built, why are some coming in projected at budget and others perhaps $6,000 over? What's the?
They're farther along in the construction. There's some houses up there that are almost done. And there's others that aren't as far along, and the material costs are escalating. If not, is that not correct, Dean?
Material costs are escalating, and some we probably didn't budget as well as others. And then we were also in a point of the bill going up, right? So some lots paid, for example, the flooring, the I-joists and things, they paid, whatever. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they paid, let's say, 6,000, and others have paid 10 for the same floor because of the increase. And that's actually not far off. There really has been an increase that high.
Councilor Chang?
I think that I'm generally supportive of, as Councilmember Ashby said, of helping people get into their first home. And I think what I'm still not struggling with, but still contemplating, is that this is money that I think at one time we thought would go to paying for someone's rent.
Mhm.
So having it go towards someone actually owning a home of their own outright, I mean, and that's a great goal, but it does seem a slight different use of the funds. And so I think, and I appreciate what our city attorney said, it certainly sounds like it's an allowable use of the funds, but it's just sort of an adjustment when you think that you're helping someone with their rent versus helping someone purchase their first home. It's a slight, I mean, I'm glad that we can help it in both ways, but I can see that if you're expecting one and it's suddenly another, it may take an adjustment in thinking.
And that's why I brought it here tonight, because we're changing course. If we decide to do this and those dollars are sitting idle, and this is I sit on the housing authority board, and Dean was at our last board meeting telling the board about the challenges that he's being presented, and we know the financial difficulties that the housing authority is in, and they have no resources to solve this problem. And I recognize that these houses are Port Orchard residents, and it's providing home ownership in our community. And I think that's a good thing. And I don't have a vote in this. I just I saw an opportunity, and Dean knows this is a one-time deal. He doesn't get to come back 6 months with the next group of houses. Hopefully the construction costs are going to go down, because we intend to do rental assistance with this. We have an agreement with KCR to do that. But as I said, these dollars are just sitting idle at this point. Councilmember Ciccardi?
Just kind of a follow on, kind of maybe a last comment in the form of this agreement, right? Because this is something that is going to be, I guess, able to be referred to for many years, is instead of just having a really broad request, if we could add some level of detail, as you stated, you went through a fairly rigorous budget process. You kind of know what you budgeted. Now you know what the overruns are. And so maybe we can have a little more detail that's baked into this agreement, along with kind of an up to amount, right? These are still estimates. And if for some reason something were to change the other direction, that funding is just up to the actual overruns. And I just think having a little more specificity to this particular process is just helpful. Is to some extent we're setting some sort of a new standard, so to speak. And so I just want to make sure it's done right, and it's just not being seen as a blank check.
So Noah or Charlie, do you kind of have some ideas on how something like of this nature could be crafted and dispersed so that we're not creating a tremendous burden on you guys?
Yeah, I'll go first and then Charlie can follow up. So I first want to thank Dean for coming. So this was a concept floated. Me and Dean have a plan to meet, and Charlie to talk about the program. Again, you guys are creating something new, so we haven't ironed out any of the details. So the feedback from council tonight is very helpful for us as we kind of craft what you guys would like to see. So I think that will come back as Councilmember Ciccardi asked. But Dean and I need to have some time to meet and chat. So good to meet you, Dean. Good to see you the first time. The other thing I wanted to follow up, since this is a new program, it can be tailored to whatever the council wants. So Dean, I believe the request is for 30,000 roughly. We have 50,000 in the fund right now. And so there is $20,000 that we would continue to earmark for that rental assistance program, which we already have in place, as the mayor said. So we almost have a 2-program fold if you decide to carry this forward, one for rental assistance, some portion of funds, whatever we have available after this program. So you could do a little bit of both. And I just want to address Councilmember Chang's question on that, because part of the funds will continue to be used for rental assistance once they submit those requests. Charlie, did you have some follow on?
Nothing to add. I think that was very thorough. My intention is to draft a very robust interlocal agreement similar to the one you have for your other affordable housing program, setting out the expectations and the roles that the city will play as the funder and the entity will play as your consultant or contractor.
All right. So I think it's going to take us a few weeks or more to draft an agreement. And I doubt that we're going to get this back here in a couple of weeks, but maybe the first meeting or so in May. Do we want this bring back as a discussion item? Would you be ready to I think Dean wants to keep his construction projects moving and be able to pay for his materials. So is first couple weeks in May, if it's the second week in May, workable for a timeline for you?
Yeah, certainly. And at that point, we could have exact costs and what we project the cost to be to finish. So we'd be able to certainly do a cost not to exceed it. And I think that is 30,000 today. But we can have a little more definitive number by then.
Okay, wonderful. Any more questions? Okay, we'll let Dean go back to his family and we will continue our meeting.
Thank you for your time.
Yep, thanks Dean for showing up.
Bye.
Okay, we have a second presentation tonight. The Finance Committee a few weeks back got a presentation on the pathway funding, and we thought it was relevant to share with the public and to the remainder of the City Council. So Noah did one of his fabulous PowerPoint presentations, and he's going to share his screen here. So Noah, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your introduction. I think the mayor set the stage appropriately for this conversation. We were asked to kind of give an overall picture of the Bay Street pedestrian path. And so we've limited this to 7 slides. The first part of the presentation will focus on kind of where we've come with this project, how much we've spent and all the various pieces of that. In your packet itself, there is the timeline, which is in bigger font, so you can follow that. I have in the slide presentation, but once we get to that slide 3, you'll see it's hard to read, so that's why I want to include it.
Noah, can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
I don't know which screen you're sharing, but you're showing basically the
Your notes and
your note screen as opposed to the full screen.
Okay, let me change screens. How's that?
There you go.
there you
Thank
go.
Better? Okay. Thank you, John. Okay, so this first slide, we have put together a summary of the Bay Street Pathway project historically from 1994 to 2001, currently showcasing how much we've spent on the project on this, including grant funds, state funds, and local funding. So inception to date, we've spent approximately $4 million on this project with $1.687 million of federal grants, $1.4 million of state grants, and so far $893,000 of local funding being contributed to the project. When we talked about this at the Finance Committee, the question that came up was if this project were terminated, halted, in any way at this point in time, would there be costs to the city for doing that? So working with Public Works, we came up with some cost estimates of what it would cost the city if we were to close the project down now in its current state. So we believe that there would be potentially direct expenses of roughly $650,000 for removal of the houses, as well as cost estimate of $450,000 for the seawall repair work. There is the potential of anywhere from $0 to $1.34 million, depending on the responses we receive from WSDOT as well as FHWA on the grant repayments. So that gives you a range of anywhere from 0 to roughly 1.9, we'll call it $2 million. From 0 to $2 million is our potential risk range if the project were to stop at this point, that we would have to actually pay and do additional work.
So no, there isn't really 0. We would have the 650 because we would need to remove the houses and we would need to, where the houses are at, do a seawall similar to what was done previously. And I think it's probably safe to assume, while we would probably not have to pay back the dollars that we got on the segments that we constructed, the dollars that we used to buy the houses likely would be, which is about $800,000. So our most likely scenario is about $1.2 million, and it could be 650,000, and it could be as much as $2 million, but safe bet is about $1.2 million. So go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I provide a range, because we're all guessing at this point. And just to be clear, The $0 to $1.34 million is only for the grant repayment portion only. Where the direct expenses, the 650, that's where the house removal and the seawall would come in. So that's why you got two different categories of expenses as a potential cost.
And
So moving on. Oh,
just one thing to point to. Our proposal, when we get to the end of this, is to pay for these expenses with REIT funds, which are for dollars that can only be used. They're restricted funds that can only be used for capital, things that are in our capital plans. If we don't move forward with this, we would have to utilize general fund dollars, which are our streets, our parks, and people, and reserves. So those are the only, we would not be able to use capital dollars because we're no longer building a capital project. Go ahead, Noah.
and moving on to the next slide. Again, this provides you the historical timeline, which really showcases all the successes and the complete activity of this project. It is in your packet, so it is much larger for you to read and absorb. And if you have questions, you can ask that at the end. But I'm going to kind of move past this timeline because I just wanted to provide it to just remind everybody where we've come and all the work that has been put into this project. Okay, so moving on to the next. So that's kind of a reflection on the historical pieces of this project, and now we're kind of looking forward. So if we continue this project, what is the estimated cost to complete it? So currently we are estimating about $7.825 million to complete the remainder of this project, which involves the right-of-way, purchasing, consulting, as well as construction. In the top table there, you see I have an estimated cost of $825,000 for right-of-way consulting services. This value does include the recent change order request of $625,000, as well as our current contract of $200,000 remaining for that right-of-way consulting. We are also estimating about $2 million for the purchases of any right-of-way, or $2.825 million for this right-of-way phase. Moving on to the next expense category is the construction. Again, these are all estimates at this time, but we're estimating roughly about $5 million to construct the remaining pieces of this project. So that gives us a total remaining project cost of $7.52 million. And the next table below it in blue starts to identify the funding sources to pay for the $7.25 million. So starting from the top, we have a federal grant currently in place that we have $913,000 available to us. It is cash that would be available to us. There would be no borrowing with that. It is a budgeted revenue source. And yes, the funding is available. It's not a grant we need to receive. We have it available. The next category is the real estate excise tax number 1, where we did budget $143,000 as part of our matching component to the federal grant. So that is cash available we have in the treasury, and that adds to our right-of-way initial phase. So as we kind of work this down from our right-of-way phase, that leaves the funding gap of $1.796 million in the right-of-way phase from the currently identified right-of-way phase funding. I'll come back to that in a second, so I'm going to leave that red mark there. Moving down, federal grant. So we do have a federal grant for the construction phase of roughly $2.9 million. That would be cash available to us, no borrowing. It's not budgeted yet because we have not gotten to that phase of the project. So that would be a future budget, biennial budget, but we do consider those funds to be available. And then to round off the remaining funding need, we've identified in this table here, real estate excise tax 1 and 2 as potential funding sources for the remaining construction phase to round off the $5 million and provide us the $2.1 million needed. Now, again, we identified that this would be cash flow. So this would be cash that had come into the treasury. No borrowing is anticipated for these pieces. What you can identify is currently we have a funding gap of the $3.96 million of the overall $7.825 million project. So I'll pause there just real quick before we move on to the next slide as we start to really drill down onto potential funding sources and see if there's any questions.
Questions for Noah? Councilmember Shane? Need to unmute yourself, though. You're still muted. Do you have a question, Councilmember Chang? You're muted.
He said, I'm fine.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we'll continue. So the next slide. Okay, so that again gives us a picture of what the cost is going forward in the current funding gap or the funding sources we have currently identified. So we point at REIT 1 and REIT 2 as our potential funding sources for these gaps. So we start to work on the analysis to say, well, do we have the funds available? So we created this table again to showcase and highlight the funds, real estate excise tax 1 and 2, as well as budgeted revenues, expenses, and obligations. So we're going to walk through each column and to make sure that each one makes sense and is clear as far as what we're trying to communicate as far as having funding available. So as of January 1st, 2021, in real estate excise tax 1, we had a beginning cash and investment balance of $1.625 million. And I'm going to stick with column 1 because all the information I'm going to share is just applicable to REIT 2, which is the second column. In the current biennial budget, we budgeted $700,000 of revenue. We budgeted $393,000 of expenses to come out of that fund, which would leave us an estimated ending balance of $1.932 million in our REIT 1. Similar budget in revenues for REIT 2. We have $1.377 million going into REIT 2. Again, $700,000 of that is real estate excise tax cash flow from real estate transactions. The other $677,000 is coming from a return of source, as I like to call it. These were funds, REIT 2 funds that were dedicated to the Tremont project, which we did not spend on the Tremont project. So we are returning it to the real estate excise tax fund, as that was the original source of that funding. And so with us not spending it, great, we have savings on the project. We can return it to REIT excise tax 2 fund and can be reused, reappropriated for other projects. You'll see we have budgeted out $1.192 million to come out of REIT 2, which leaves us an ending balance of $1.82 million. Now this next gray box, we always highlight and plan ahead. And so we start to identify expenses and projects that we might need to rely on REIT funding for in the coming year. And so this is focused on 21-22. They are obligated expenses. They are not budgeted. So of these expenses, I'll focus on the first one, $250,000 we have identified for City Hall design. We have an awarded contract now. So once we bring forward a budget amendment, that will actually become a budgeted expense because we do know that those are real costs that we do need the money for. We have in red or a burgundy color there, the Tremont Audit Reserve, that's $250,000 we have obligated in the event that once we complete this Tremont audit with the state, if there were any incorrect applications of the grant funding, we would have some fundings available to repay that. We don't anticipate that. We think the Tremont project was done correctly, and we're almost in the final stages of that project. So those funds hopefully will be unobligated shortly. Next, in this yellow cream color, this is the total of that prior slide for the right-of-way phase for that funding gap, because that's the initial funding gap that we're trying to address. So we identified $625,000 coming from REIT 1. And then to close the funding gap with the $1.1 million, we're split it between REIT 1 and REIT 2 of that $585,000 each. What this leaves us is an estimated or projected ending fund balance for the end of this biennium of $221,000 for REIT 1 and $1.2 million for REIT 2. So again, I'm going to take this one more step forward, because one planning tool that we always have to be aware of is any debt service outstanding. So we do have debt service with Tremont, and we are using our real estate excise tax 2 funds to make those debt service payments. So as we continue our obligations into 23-24, we haven't identified anything in the REIT 1 yet, but we did want to point out that we have $598,000, which we would consider obligated from that funding source. What that brings us down to is after we have paid for our 21-22 budgeted expenses, factored in some projects that we're aware of for 21-22 in our obligation sections, as well as factoring in what we anticipate to be obligations and budget for 23-24, we have our ending fund balance for REIT 1 of $220,000 and an estimate of $636,000 for REIT 2.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Noah, that doesn't include any budgeted or projected revenue that we may receive in the next biennium, nor does it factor in the dollars that been receiving the last few months that are well in excess of budget, correct?
Yeah, it's correct. So there's a couple ways to look at this. As the mayor said, we are not projecting anything more than what we have originally budgeted in revenues. And then we're only focused on 21 and 22 revenues for this analysis. We're not factoring in 23 and 24 revenues. So that's something to take in consideration. And we could also break up our budgeted revenues and look at what we've received year to date and look at, and we did this for the finance committee. We actually looked at what we've received year to date. So what amount of revenues would still need to be received to meet our budgeted expectations. But thus far, we are projecting higher than our 3 months budgets. So we are on track to meet at least our 21-22 budget revenues, if not exceed it.
I have a question. The chart that we're looking at using the REIT 1 and REIT 2 monies, that gets us through the right-of-way phase, but it does not address what we anticipate a shortfall in the construction phase. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. This analysis is meant to address the here and now, the right-of-way phase, and help the council kind of opine on moving forward with the right-of-way consultant. How far can we get? And so then, as you would look further out, you look at the estimated ending fund balance for 23-24, that roughly $858,000, and you could start to work that back into our construction gap, if you will.
Councilmember Chang?
Basic question for Noah. What is REIT 1 and 2, and why don't we just have one REIT?
Because they have different rules and how we can spend them. And they're two different state statutes. They're subtly different, but they're both have to be used for capital projects.
Okay, and these are budgeted revenues, so it doesn't reflect what could actually come in.
Correct. Yep.
Through 2022.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've been performing much better than budget.
Thank you.
Other questions? We ready for Noah to move on? Go ahead, Noah.
Okay. So now that we've identified the REIT money and where we could close the right-of-way gap, and then we would see that we would have some surplus by the end of 23-24 that could be addressed for the construction phase. Another question that has been asked by the finance committee was, well, what about our other capital projects? What about our other funding gaps? Because the REIT can be used for a variety of things. So again, we wanted to put together a table that showcased our current significant capital projects and the funding gaps that we have for each of these 7 projects. And then in the table below, I also highlight that we have other plans that also have funding gaps, but those are much larger to put into this table. So we wanted to focus on the first current and relevant projects that have funding gaps. So we'll start with City Hall improvements. We're currently in the design phase. We have an estimated project of roughly $8.5 million for that project in total. We have funded $500,000 of that for the design phase. And that would leave a funding gap of roughly $8 million for that project. Moving down, the Bethel Lincoln Roundabout, our TIP 2.04 project, which we recently received significant federal funding for. Factoring in all the federal funding and grants, we currently have a shortfall of about $800,000. Again, I'll come back to the funding sources to address some of these shortfalls. We have our Bay Street TIP 1.2 pedestrian path. The projects we just walked through, again, we identified the $3.896 million of a current funding gap. Well 11, another big project, $8 million with a potential funding gap of $5.5 million, followed by our second part of Well 13, We're calling it Part B because we're closing down Part A of well 13. And well 13 won't be able to continue until the Foster pilot project is completed. But to complete Part B, we'll need an additional $5 million to address that funding problem. And then their last current significant project that I think is important to talk about is the Marina Pump Station. Estimated project cost of roughly $13 million with a current funding gap of 11.7. Below
And-
there, okay.
And I was just gonna say, we can dive deep into some of this now, but part of my presentation at the retreat is to dive deep into these, what I'm calling, mega projects or large projects, and what our funding plans and how we're gonna pay for these other capital projects. So go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, so I was just going to finish out the slide by showing at the bottom there, we identified some of the funding solution proposals to address these current funding gap issues. We have the American Rescue Plan ARP money coming in, $3.2 million. We have potential borrowings from our LTGO to cover our city hall, water, sewer, storm. We have impact fees. We've identified sewer connection fees, water connection fees, as well as water and sewer rate revenue. And then lastly, we can also rely upon our general fund balance that came in over budget from our prior buy-in, again, to help solve some of these issues. And I don't know if the mayor wanted to speak to any of the funding gap solutions now, or if you wanted to kind of table that to your retreat.
So I've got PowerPoint slides on each one of these projects. So, but I'm happy to discuss any of it at this point, or if you choose, if you wish to. But we're just trying to recognize we do have other needs, and but we do have plans for those other needs. Councilmember Ashby.
Yes, can you summarize those, for us without going through your whole presentation?
Sure.
Because we're being asked this evening to approve an amendment to the right-of-way phase. And that amendment is to the tune of a little over $600,000. So before I take a vote on that, I would like the conversation a little more thorough on the other capital projects and their funding sources.
Certainly. City Hall, as we've been discussing that, previously we had a mortgage, a loan on City Hall. We can do cost allocation on that because the employees from the utilities and other enterprise funds reside in City Hall. So the plan for City Hall, at least my plan to present to you, is that we should be doing a borrowing on City Hall. We can get those funds at 2% or less, we believe. In the current rate environment, we're probably 6 to 9 months out from having the designs ready. So sometime the end of this year or early next year, that project will be moving forward. We'll have designs to redo the shell on City Hall. The roundabout project at $2.8 million, that remaining gap should be covered by traffic impact fees. Permit and development activity has been very robust, and I'm confident that we will have those dollars for the match for our grant. The pathway, Noah and I project, as we showed in the earlier slides, we at historical levels, it's 3 to 5 years worth of our REIT revenue going forward. I don't believe it's more than a couple of years at the current real estate activities. Now, at some point, that's going to slow down. So somewhere between 2 and 5 years, it'll take us to pay for that. We're a couple of years out on the construction for the pathway. So we have money to cover the right-of-way phase, and we need to come up with additional dollars to cover the construction, which would be future REIT dollars. Well 11 and well 13 in the pump station, so that American Rescue funds, I would propose that those will come in 2 bites, 22 and 23, about $1.6 million each time. And it's just going to be a timing thing, which we've got to put them to a capital project, and which one of those projects is ready to go, and we can, reduce the borrowing we're likely doing. There's Public Works Trust Fund loans. There's a number of funding opportunities for sewer and water infrastructure. But well, 13 in particular isn't moving forward until we have Foster resolved. And at the current activity levels out there, we are collecting significant connection charges to help pay for some of these projects. An element of these wells and the marina pump station, though, are the responsibility of the current ratepayers, because when we're replacing existing infrastructure and we're also upgrading it and creating additional capacity, and that's where the connection charge revenue is appropriate to pay for. And our capital facilities plans shows very detailed splits on how much goes to each element, from new construction to replacing existing infrastructure. So, marina pump stations probably not moving forward till end of this year, early next year. And that's our only project on the sewer side, but we do have at least 2 wells and probably well 12 also, but none of those wells are moving forward until, like I said, until Foster is resolved. Is that an adequate explanation for your questions, Councilmember Ashby? Councilmember Cacciardi?
I just want to remind the council, I think we all know, but some of the things this council has done as far as setting kind of reserve requirements that, kind of enabled us over the last 4 to 6 years to even have these conversations as far as, mitigating risks to the city on being able to use some of these dollars because some of the reserve policies we put in place.
Good point. Other comments or questions? Are we ready to move on? I think Noah's got a little more information. Is there another slide?
Yeah, I got one more slide on.
We ready to move forward? Or are there more questions about these other? Okay. And as I said, I plan to dive a little deeper at the retreat into these capital projects.
Oh, that's it.
I guess
just the questions.
Questions. Okay.
Big questions. There we go.
All right. Any last questions before we move on to our business items? Okay. Hearing none, we'll dive into our business items then. The first of which, thank you, Noah. That was a great presentation, and as always. So item 7A, which is an adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 20.04, timing of comprehensive plan amendment submittals. Mr. Bond, this is yours.
Yes, thank you. Port Orchard Municipal Code, Section 20.04060, currently requires that all applications for amendments to the city's comprehensive plan must be submitted to the Department of Community Development by 4 p.m. on January 31st of each year. This requirement applies to both general applications from citizens and to applications prepared by the city itself. However, this requirement has proven to create a hardship for the city, whose comprehensive plan amendments often depend on financial information and as a result of plan studies that cannot be provided until later in the fiscal year. This information includes items such as updates to the city's 6- and 20-year transportation improvement program, updates to the utility plans, as well as ongoing city projects that are subject to frequent updates and revisions, such as the South Kitsap Community Event Center and the Downtown Sub-Area Plan. Since the city can only revise the comprehensive plan with general amendments once each year pursuant to RCW 3670A 130, it is essential that the city be able to include a complete and up-to-date city-initiated amendment in each annual amendment package. Therefore, the city proposes to revise POMC 20.04 to allow city-initiated amendments to be submitted to the Department of Community Development anytime prior to the City Council's adoption of the final comprehensive plan amendment agenda, which is required to be done by April 30th of each year. No change would be made to the annual deadline for citizen-initiated amendments, which is January 31st. And so you probably saw that the April 30th deadline is rapidly approaching. This amendment was needed so that we could add a couple of revisions to the utilities element that we did not file by January 31st. And so by amending this section of code, we are able to update our capital improvement program for the water and sewer utilities, which we did not submit by January 31st of this year. So it's very important that this get passed. The staff recommendation is that the city council vote to approve the ordinance amending 20.04 as presented.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance amending POMC 20.04 as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Ashby. For any questions or discussion of this item? Okay, hearing none, you'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance amending Port Orchard Municipal Code, Chapter 20.04. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the ordinance is approved. We're on to item B, adoption of a resolution for approving the Washington State Department of Ecology's Water Restoration and Enhancement Draft Plan for WIRA 15. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. And just for clarification, I'm going to be looking at a strange angle because I'm trying to keep the ball of bright light on the window frame. Otherwise, I can't see anything. It's so bright outside. So I apologize for the awkward camera position.
Good problem to have.
Yeah. Yes. So since 2018, the City of Port Orchard's Public Works staff has been actively participating in the Water Resources Inventory Area, or a WIRA 15 Watershed Restoration and Enhancement Committee, formed in response to the state legislature's action in January of 2018, which directed the Washington State Department of Ecology to develop a watershed restoration and enhancement plan for several of the WIRAs within Washington by June 30th, 2021. That will provide regulations for non-permitted or permit-exempt domestic wells, which have been proliferated in many areas and have been largely unregulated. So that's people's just, they have their own individual well, not a water system. The plans are intended to provide regulatory sideboards for permit-exempt well withdrawals within each WIRA, providing an ecological benefit to each watershed by ensuring that the water withdrawn from the watershed is offset by water returning. The committee, with the city's contributions, recently completed the preparation of the plan for WIRA 15. Although the plan consists of enumerating and describing watershed restoration projects throughout the county, condensed down to action items, the plan contains two main points. One is it sets the number of permit-exempt wells that can be expected in Kitsap County and areas not within the growth management area or a water service area, i.e. outside of the city of Port Orchard and other cities in the county. And two, it sets the amount of water expected to be used by these exempt wells, less the amount reintroduced to the aquifers via septic systems. And that's termed consumptive use in the documents. The key benefits from the plan include: one, approval of the WIRA 15 Watershed Restoration and Enhancement Plan, or the REC. It will benefit city streams by locally regulating quantities of water being withdrawn from surface aquifers via domestic wells, which are almost exclusively located outside the city. And two, approval of the WIRA 15 WRE plan benefits the city by promoting habitat projects within the region that positively impact surface water flows. The key drawbacks from the process includes: one, to approve the plan, there must be consensus among all members of the committee. And absent consensus, ecology, in its effort to comply with ESSB 6091, may elect to deviate from the plan in its development of a new plan that is not subject to input from the local agencies within WIRA 15. So please recall that the plan was discussed at both the Utility Committee and the Land Use Committee in February of 2021 and at the March 16th, 2021 work study session. In conformance with RCW 90.94.030, staff recommends approval of the Watershed Restoration Enhancement Draft Plan for the WIRA 15, which is we've identified as contract C044-21, prior to the final adoption by the Department of Ecology in June 2021.
Member Lucarelli.
I move to approve the water restoration and enhancement draft plan for WRIA 15, contract number C0443-21.
Second it.
Got a motion by Councilmember Lucarelli, a second by Councilmember Clausen. Any questions or comments for Mr. Dorsey? Councilmember Cacciardi?
Just a little nit to clean up for the permanent record, but in the recommendation and then the motion, the contract number is slightly different. So if we could just insert the correct one, just again for the record's accurate.
Certain the clerk will get it correct.
Yeah, just for the minutes. Thanks.
All right, any other comments or questions? Right, you'd be voting on adopting a resolution approving the Washington State Department of Ecology's Water Restoration and Enhancement Plan, draft plan. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the plan has been approved. Go to item C, adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Technical Systems, Inc. for the 2021 through 2024 on-call SCADA maintenance. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. City staff determined that the city's supervisory control and data acquisition, or SCADA as we call it, systems require technical expertise from qualified consultants to maintain the continued operation and functionality of the city's water and sanitary sewer systems. SCADA programming and programmable logic controllers, or PLCs, troubleshooting of the city's water sanitary sewer system requires technical expertise beyond city staff expertise. Therefore, on March 11th, 2021, the City of Port Orchard's Public Works Department reviewed the 2021 MRSC consultant roster with the main category design and planning and the subcategory of telemetry SCADA for the 2021 SCADA radio communication design radio licensing implementation project. This is also largely due to the fact that CenturyLink will no longer be providing copper service to our lift stations. So on March 11th, 2021, the city staff selected 3 qualified consulting firms from the roster, L2 Systems LLC, Control Freak Incorporated, and TSI. The statements of qualifications of the 3 selected firms were then scored based upon established criteria by 3 public works staff members. And on March 15th, 2021, city staff determined that TSI Inc. was the firm selected based upon the results of the scoring spreadsheet. And on March 25th, the Public Works Department successfully completed the bidder's responsibility checklist for TSI Incorporated. Staff recommends adoption of resolution number 029-21, thereby approving of and authorizing the mayor to execute contract C047 with TSI for the 2021 through 2024 on-call SCADA maintenance contract in an amount of $100,000 in documenting the professional services procurement. And you'll notice that we have the 100,000, but we're anticipating 30,000 in each one of those years.
Councilmember Chang.
I move to adopt resolution number 029-21, authorizing the mayor to execute contract number C47-21 with Technical Systems, Inc. for the 2021-2024 on-call SCADA maintenance contract in the amount of $100,000 and documenting the professional services procurement procedures.
Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Chang, a second by Councilmember Ashby. Questions for Mr. Dorsey or comments? Hearing none, you'll be voting on a resolution approving the contract with Technical Systems, Inc. for the on-call SCADA maintenance. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Contract has been approved. All right, I know most of the people on the street I live on are excited to see this next item finally move forward. We've been dealing with a sinkhole out there on Sydney Avenue for quite a while. So item D is adoption of a resolution approving a contract with Active Construction for the Sydney Avenue sewer repair project. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you. The city engineer set an engineer's estimate to the assistant city engineer set an engineer's estimate for the Sydney Avenue Sewer Repair Project of $338,000. Accordingly, and pursuant to RCW 3904155, on February 11th, 2021, the city did establish a roster of qualified contractors from the 2021 MRSC Small Works roster, which you can see as Exhibit A attached. For the main category, and this is a lot, and I apologize, concrete and masonry, earthwork, roadway construction, repair and maintenance, sanitary sewer construction, repair and maintenance, storm drainage facility construction, repair and maintenance, water facility construction, repair and maintenance. And the subcategory is concrete pavement, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and driveways, excavation and trucking, asphalt pavement, roadways, concrete paving, pavement markings, roadway construction, and cured in place piping, and sanitary sewer construction, sanitary sewer internal repairs, side service construction and repair, temporary bypass pumping, catch basin manhole rehabilitation and repair, storm drainage construction, flagging, traffic control, to perform the very complicated and much needed Sydney Avenue Sewer Repair Project. On February 12th, 2021, and pursuant to resolution number 019-17, which was the Section 5 bidder procedures, the city's Public Works Department emailed an invitation to bid for the Sydney Avenue Sewer Repair Project to all selected MRSC small roster contractors. We did receive 4 bids, including applicable tax, labor, and this project actually has 2 different labor categories or tax categories. The road work that doesn't have a sales tax, just a use tax, and then the other utility work that does. So by the March 11th, 2021 deadline, we received a low bid of $358,358, and then we had a high of $514,860,000. And again, the assistant engineer's estimate was at 338, so we were the low bid, but not by much. So on April 17th, 2021, the city's Public Works Department staff completed the mandatory bidders checklist and determined that Active Construction Inc.'s bid of $358,358 was the lowest qualified bid. The Public Works Department has confirmed that the bidding requirements for the Public Works Department has been followed. So staff recommends that the City Council adopt resolution number 026-21, thereby approving contract C036-21 with Active Construction for the Sydney Avenue Sewer Repair Project in an amount of $358,358.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I move to adopt resolution number 026-21, thereby approving contract number C036-21 with Active Construction, Inc. for the Sydney Avenue Sewer Repair Project, contract in the amount of $358,358.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen and a second by Councilmember Lucarelli. And if you recall, Active Construction was the company that built our Tremont Street project. So we have a very positive experience record with them. So I'm excited to have a very reputable contractor on site. Other questions for Mr. Dorsey? Councilmember Lucarelli?
I don't have a question exactly, but I know that there have been some citizens that wondered about the order of projects. And I've been especially concerned about this one because of the location of the problem deep in a hill, and having seen some of the damage that can be done when these kinds of problems aren't dealt with in a timely manner. This is huge to be taking care of this, and I'm grateful that we can move forward very quickly now.
Him too. Councilmember Clausen?
Just a question, do we have a time frame, Mark, as to when we anticipate them getting started and when we anticipate it being finished? Assuming we know what's going to happen when they take the road up.
Right. Once we have the contract awarded, they're working on a current schedule. And one of the big pieces that we're going to be doing is, as they develop their schedule, we're going to be heavily involved in their traffic control plan, their road closure plan, because we know that Seattle or Kitsap up to Seattle, the snow route, which is, the detour route to get up to the government buildings. A lot of the work that's happening is right at that intersection. And we know that we can't close that other than when we do the concrete work at the very, very end, and there's no way around that. So we don't have anything yet. As soon as we do, it'll be like the Tremont project, where we'll probably have 3 or 4 different, phases of work where there's going to be different detours involved. And so as soon as we work that out, we're going to do the same thing in Tremont, where we actually had a page where we have those weekly updates and getting information out. So we don't have it yet, but we know that it's a high priority for us to obtain that schedule, those different phases, and disseminate that out to the community.
Would you expect that this project could be started in 30 days?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're anticipating that they'll be starting in May.
Good, thank you.
It's likely we'll be utilizing our snow route for much, it'll be phased, but Sydney won't be drivable, at least in one direction for sure, for a period of time.
Well, we also have Klein, so.
Yeah. Yes, we do. Other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, you'll be voting on approval of a contract with active construction for the Sydney Avenue sewer repair project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract has been approved. So we're to item E now. Approval of supplemental agreement number 2 to contract number 072-18 with Tierra Right of Way Services LTD regarding the Bay Street pedestrian pathway project. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. On November 13th, 2018, the city of Port Orchard contracted with Tierra Right of Way Services Limited for the continuation of the Bay Street pedestrian pathway project right of way acquisition phase. On September 8th, 2020, the city council approved supplement number 1 for additional survey, and title services for this phase. For project continuation and the successful completion of this phase, additional right-of-way acquisition services are needed, which are included as Exhibit A. These services are set out in supplemental agreement number 2 to contract C072-18 with WashDOT Highway Local Programs, having reviewed and approved of this in advance of the submission to the city council. Staff recommends authorization for the mayor to execute supplemental agreement number 2 to contract C072-18 with Tierra Right of Way Services Limited in the additional amount of $613,317.05, thereby bringing the total contract amount to $813,231.06.
Councilmember Cacciardi.
Mayor, I move to authorize the mayor to execute supplemental agreement number 2 to contract number C072-18 with Tierra Right of Way Services LTD in the additional amount of $613,317.05, thereby bringing the total contract amount to $813,231.06.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Cacciardi, second by Councilmember Clausen. Any questions for Mr. Dorsey? Any further dialogue? Councilmember Chang.
I just need to mention that I'm an employee of WashDOT and I do not benefit in any way from this, but if anyone wants me to not vote, I will be happy to stand aside.
I don't see anybody thinking that you have a conflict. You need to recuse yourself, so I don't think you're going to get off that easy. Councilmember Cacciardi.
I just want to thank council and staff for delaying this from our last meeting. We had an opportunity, obviously, we heard tonight, to take a deeper dive at this overall subject matter and the other kind of related capital projects throughout the city in the coming years. And I think, just kind of measuring twice before we cut once was the absolute prudent thing to do. And so I'm glad we're here tonight after, taking that additional body of work, and special thanks to Noah for all of his analysis on that.
I would echo the same. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your work, Noah. It was greatly appreciated. Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. Be voting on the approval of supplemental agreement number 2 to contract number 072-18 with Tierra Right-of-Way Services regarding the Bay Street pedestrian pathway project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract amendment passes unanimously. We are to item F, approval of the purchase of a Craftco Inc. Super Shot trailer melter via Sourcewell contract number 052417, formerly known as the National Joint Powers Alliance. Mr. Dorsey.
I know, that's a mouthful. I blame Charlie. So the Port Orchard City Council approved $52,000 as part of the 2021-2022 Public Works Department biennial budget for the purchase of an asphalt crack sealer melter. The city is a member of the Minnesota Purchasing Cooperative Sourcewell, which was formerly known as the National Joint Powers Alliance, or NJPA. On March 18th, 2021, Public Works Department staff identified Craftco Inc. as an approved manufacturer through Sourcewell contract number 052417-CFC for a Craftco Inc. Supershot 125 diesel trailer melter, and consistent with the Sourcewell contract, Craftco Inc. referred the city to its local authorized distributor, Partner Construction Products, for the purchase. Consistent with RCW 3934030, city staff confirmed the procurement process utilized by Sourcewell, that it met the requirements of the Minnesota procurement regulations and obtained the necessary documentation regarding procurement. On March 18, 2021, Partner Construction Products provided the city with a quote of $47,726.86, applicable tax and delivery, for a total purchase price of $53,929.78, consistent with the terms of the Sourcewell contract. The city's procurement policy requires council approval for purchase of an excess of $35,000. Otherwise, we would have just purchased this. And there was a lot of information provided in the summary intentionally because we wanted to make sure that the process that we went through, we could go through it because of the number of parties that were involved in the process for us to piggyback on this. So we wanted to document that. Staff recommends that the city council approve the purchase of the Craftco Inc. Supershot 125 diesel trailer melter from finally Partner Construction Products through the Sourcewell contract number 052417-CFC for a total purchase price of $53,929.78, applicable tax and delivery included.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the purchase of the Craftco Inc. Supershot 125 diesel trailer melter from Partner Construction Products through Sourcewell contract number 052417-CFC for a total purchase price of $53,929.78, applicable tax included.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Clausen and a second by Councilmember Chang. And so just to let you know, this is one of the important pieces of equipment that will enable us to do some of our own street repairs and maintenance. Most of these activity in the past has been contracted out. So you approved a number of purchases in this biennial budget and this is one of them that'll allow us to start working on preserving some of our streets ourselves. So Councilmember Clausen.
You just answered my question. I just wanted to make sure this was the gizmo that we needed so that folks can go out and start taking care of our streets, the first phase.
Yep, this is one of the gizmos. There's another gizmo that's a grinder that goes on the front of our
skid steer.
Yeah, thank you. The skid steer, and allows it, goes in, grinds out the asphalt, and this is another piece. So there's a few different pieces of equipment that we're acquiring to allow us to start patching and repairing streets ourselves.
Mark, will this allow folks to go out and seal up the cracks to help with water intrusion and freezing and cracking of the pavement?
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna allow us to implement basically a crack seal program.
And that's sorry to, members of the Transportation Committee know this, but this is 1 year we'll go around and, patch and seal these cracks. And then we'll, the following year, award a contract to a contractor who will come in and chip seal many of our streets. And so if we don't do this process first, then the water intrusion that you were referring to, Councilmember Clausen, continues to happen, and it doesn't help preserve the streets. So this allows us to do the legwork ahead of time to allow us to get a better product when we go to do an overlayment. Other questions or comments? I just thank you for, allowing us to make these purchases to serve our citizens better. I think these are important purchases to help us maintain our streets in a better manner.
Thank you.
So you'll be voting on the purchase of a Craftco Super Shot trailer melder. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, anyone opposed? I guess it was a melter, not a melder. So anyone up, and no one was opposed, so I got distracted there. So all right, that approval for that purchase has been approved. We're to our last item of business, which is the approval of the March 16th work study meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the minutes as distributed.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Lucarelli to approve the meeting minutes of March 16th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
I abstain.
And one abstention from Councilmember Cacciardi. Minutes are approved. All right, we have no discussion items. Let's jump into our council committee reports. Economic Development and Tourism. I think you met yesterday. Do you have a report?
Yes, we sure did. Yesterday morning, really the bulk of that meeting centered around a discussion. We finally had the ability to schedule time with the mayor of Bremerton, Mayor Greg Wheeler, who joined us at that meeting to talk about, kind of looking forward at the extension of hours for the passenger ferry that runs between downtown Port Orchard and downtown Bremerton. He is a huge advocate of connecting these two cities. Both of our cities are experiencing, significant growth and expansion, and to have reliable transportation on that route is something important to him. And I think our council, largely agrees. And so it's great that, last year living, kind of the heart of COVID, we had to suspend what we have normally done in the past. Councilmember Ashby was there to give even additional historical perspective of where that passenger ferry has been over, greater than 10 years. And so we've asked his staff and our staff and the Port of Bremerton. We had a Commissioner Gary Anderson join us as well, as to put more of a detailed plan together and a proposal together and a funding source together. It sounds like the port is willing to participate in this, and they'll bring back, again, a little more detailed report for us to analyze. Of course, we're cautious of making sure that the ridership, supports any investment that we make, knowing that people typically are not driving from far distances to park in either of these downtowns to take this vessel across the water. It really is there to serve those that are in walking distance. But at the same time, for future economic development, we think this is an important, mode of transportation, especially with a reliable schedule. And further onto that, just the importance of a marketing campaign and PR campaign to let people know, when this is running. And lastly, to be able to work closely with Kitsap Transit to better understand anything that may be new because of their administration of the transportation route now, not a third party, with the ability perhaps to accept ORCA cards, understand any cost structures that may have changed, so on and so forth. So we'll be getting a detailed plan here shortly, and we'll look forward to sharing that with the full council. And that was really it.
I already have a meeting on the calendar with Kitsap Transit, Port of Bremerton, and Mayor Wheeler and I. So a couple weeks out. So I'm hopeful we can report something back at your next committee meeting.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your report. Utility Committee, you were supposed to meet this evening, but I don't believe there was any items, so that meeting was canceled. And Land Use, have you met Councilmember Diener? Isn't he, or is it Rosa Pepe? Okay, you're the third, aren't you, Fred?
Yes, we meet this Wednesday, I believe.
Okay, I see that on the calendar. Like, actually, May 12th, it says.
The
Yes.
the April meeting was canceled.
Oh, we're not meeting Wednesday.
All right, we'll hear from you soon. Chimes and Lights, you've always got a report.
But actually, we're meeting next week.
Okay, that's a report.
Mhm.
All right. Finance Committee, you had a special meeting, but it was, the sole purpose of it was the presentation that we received this evening. So I don't know that there's anything else to report. And I think your next meeting is next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mayor, for giving my report.
You're welcome. Transportation Committee.
Yes, we're scheduled to meet on the fourth Tuesday, which I think is April 27th at 5 o'clock.
All right. I got a few things on the mayor's report. Let's see here. I'm obligated to report HR policy changes. So you approved the high-level job description for the permit tech job that we created, and we've since completed the detailed job description and have actually promoted one employee into that position. So we kind of dodged a bullet here on the COVID, and I'm working on a message that I'll put out on our Facebook and our website probably tomorrow or the next day. I'm working with Ryan on that and Dr. Morrow. We're over 200 cases again in Kitsap County, and just a couple of weeks ago we only had about 60 cases, and unfortunately the majority of those cases are in South Kitsap in our community. And so we need to do a better job as a community, not gathering and keeping your distance from people, washing your hands, and of course get vaccinated. So if the governor hadn't changed the criteria on Friday, I believe we would be with those other 3 counties in back in phase 2. And we don't meet the matrix on 100,000, but we don't have to meet both matrix, and our hospital beds, we're still meeting that criteria. So
Mayor, are those numbers when you say South Kitsap, that's the entire area and not just the city of Port Orchard, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Would an outbreak at the jail, or do the jail numbers count for South Kitsap?
It's our young adults primarily. And so that's Councilmember Shang.
Are you going to mention the mass vaccination event on Thursday?
I'm participating in it. So I'm there at 9 o'clock getting my vaccination. So yes, there is a website and I don't have it handy.
Kitsapcovid.com.
Thank you, Fred. And there is Thursday, there's a mass vaccination site at the Lutheran Church on Mitchell. So, and last I saw, there were lots of appointments available still. So that's an important piece of this, is getting vaccinated. Kitsap Transit is working. They voted at the last board meeting to give the executive director the authority to pursue condemnation on the park and ride lot. And so that process is moving forward. Housing Kitsap, we talked about that need earlier this evening, so I won't dive into that. I had the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Board meeting. And remember I talked about the dues increase. We're still going to, and I want to make sure you're comfortable with this. The dues increase they're proposing is 2% in 2022 and 4% in 2021 and 4% in 2022. And these increases are targeted to reach their reserve goals, which would get them to 88% of their goal. We only get one vote at that meeting, and many cities, it was a split vote. I voted against it, actually. We all have reserves, and I just wasn't comfortable with funding Puget Sound Regional Council's reserves, but I just want to know what your thoughts are. It's probably going to pass at the annual meeting, but maybe I'll take that offline and communicate with me how you feel about our one vote and at that, and who's going to attend and who's going to. I typically vote, but if one of you wants to do it, I'm fine with it. But anyway, that's the long and the short of that.
Mayor, at the annual meeting, don't we all have a vote? It's not.
No, it's a weighted vote per jurisdiction. So, and like you heard, remember last year when the mayor of Gig Harbor voted one way and all of his council members.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Voted differently, and then they had a caucus and they came back and they straightened the mayor out and they voted differently. So I want to avoid that at the PSRC meeting. That's embarrassing. So if you have a strong opinion, please share it with me and I will vote the way the council and the city wants me to vote. But I'm likely to vote against this unless you tell me otherwise. And it probably is more making a statement than I think it'll pass.
So is that the entire budget or just the 2%, just the increase in the dues for the reserves?
Our dues increases to our dues. It's not a 2% increase to the entire budget. It's a 2% because some of their budget comes from.
The question was, is it a separate vote for that increase separate from the budget?
No, it's part of the whole budget.
So then you'd have to vote against the entire budget.
Yeah. And if you don't want me to do that, I won't. So got some time to think on it. I have mixed emotions about it too. At KRCC, we continue to work on the countywide planning policies, and Jay, Beck, and Nick and I I think we have a meeting set on the calendar to talk about the social justice elements and other topics. So anything else to share on that, Beck?
No, I would just say that KRCC invited their jurisdictions to have one-on-one meetings if they wanted to get any clarification they needed before our May 4th meeting. And all the jurisdictions, some are meeting with their complete councils and commissions, some are meeting like we are because Nick has done an excellent job of keeping us informed. And some are, but we've had a great response for those individual meetings. So we're grateful for that.
Yeah. I think we're doing a better job than many of the other jurisdictions on this body of work, and a big part of it is Nick's dedication to it. The sign project, I'd really like it by May to have some signs up, and I thank you to Mr. Clausen. He lent the service of Sanjay Bhatt, their public relations person, to review our questions. So we tweaked them a little bit. And if you'd like, I'll read them to you. The first one was a menu of which park did you visit? And not everybody knows the names of our parks. So Sanjay's feedback was to include a Google map so that when you look at that, it opens up a map, which was good feedback. The second question, what activities did you do at the park? We're gonna, instead of it being free form, we're going to offer a list of menu options: walk, run, cycle, sporting activities, play with kids, relaxation, walk your dog, or other. So we will have a spot for other things. The next question is, how important are trails and pedestrian paths to you? And it's a scale, it'll be either like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. And then Sanjay's feedback compared, have it being compared to playgrounds, sports courts, and ball fields, so that, you know, of course they're important to everybody, but there's only so many dollars. That is kind of the question. And how does the, you know, the public feel from a prioritization standpoint? The next question, what can the city do to make your parks more convenient or inviting? That is a free form cell. And then we want to know if you live in the city of Port Orchard, yes or no. And if you answered yes, then you get an additional question, and it's currently in the state with a statement that says currently the city of Port Orchard doesn't have a dedicated Parks and Recreation department. Would you support a levy to create a Parks and Recreation program in Port Orchard? And I think we're going to get most people, if a parks user, we have to be careful with this information. I think it's going to be very positive. And if it's not positive, then we probably need to be careful if we're considering a levy. And I'd like to see us running a ballot measure after we get our parks plan done, but we've got a lot of legwork to do. And then this is an element of that. So any concerns with any of these questions? Feedback? Okay. I think I emailed this to you about a week ago. So appreciate your support and your prior feedback on this. Let's see here. Senate Transportation Committee. I want to thank Jay 2 weeks ago for testifying, and I testified again on the funding package this last week. Earlier, it was Monday, I believe. Yeah, so yesterday. That's why I had to break away from economic development early. Our lobbyist is skeptical that the package is going to move forward. We're running out of time at the legislature. I hope it is. It's got money for Gorst, and it has money for our Sedgwick Highway 16 interchange roundabouts. So I'm holding out hope. So I've sent an email out previously. Since we record all of our meetings and committee meetings with video, staff is questioning why. Well, the council meeting is always going to have because there's a quorum, and OPMA requires that we have written minutes, but our committees is a video sufficient, and when the exception would be when we have special meetings like the finance committee meeting where we have a quorum, we will be required because of OPMA to also have written minutes. Do you have any objection to us preparing those minutes as well as the recording?
Is your question, should we continue to have written minutes?
Yeah, for committees.
For committees.
Because we do a video recording for all of our committees.
I would urge that we still have written minutes because they're more convenient to scan than, let's say, a 30 to 45-minute video. However, they don't need to be a transcription of the meeting, of course. You need to just be very spare.
I guess I would offer that, you don't have to watch the 45-minute meeting. You can there is an agenda is published, and you could fast forward to the 3 minutes that you're interested in, but just trying to make things more efficient and respectful of, I guess, staff's time.
Correct. I support what Fred said. I would still like to see a summary of the meetings, of the subcommittee meetings. I just find that more convenient. And thinking of our citizens' times, they may not want to, even fast forwarding through a committee meeting is time consuming.
Okay, fair enough. We'll continue preparing meeting minutes. Do you have something else to add, Cindy?
I'm agreeing also. I think we should have minutes, please.
Okay. All right. I've been in conversation with Cody over at Peninsula Beverage, the owner there, and he's applied for a street use permit of the parking lot north of his establishment. And I'm supportive of that. It's not a festival. They are likely going to do on Saturday night some music on their patio. And they want to have additional dining area out in front of their business. And so it would not be a festival application. It is a street use application. And I just wanted to touch base with you guys and make sure that nobody had any big concerns with that. Councilmember Lucarelli?
I'm just wondering about serving alcohol. How would he be handling that out there?
That he would need to comply with the Liquor Control Board's rules, and we have multiple entities he's gonna have to provide insurance to that is the port's DNR lease that we control, and it'll staff will work through all of those insurance issues. And he was going to only do part of the parking lot. And since it's Saturday night after the farmer's market and there aren't any commuters in the lot closer to the gazebo, I felt it was probably safer just to take the entire area. So that way he didn't have traffic driving through part of the area that he's seating patrons at. But I haven't seen a map yet, but I just felt that was a better solution than having part of it be parking and cars driving through it and part of it being outdoor dining.
I wouldn't have any objections to the use of the parking lot, but I would want to maintain that roadway access.
Yes, absolutely. It's only the parking lot directly in front of his business. Yeah. Councilmember Cacciardi, and then I'll come back to Luke.
No, he's got a lot of hoops to jump through, and I'm just glad that we're doing our part to support our local businesses. So thank you for that.
Councilmember Lucarelli, go ahead.
I'm just wondering, again, just because of the serving alcohol, he'd probably need to have that fenced in then, is that correct? To control minors?
Yeah, it's an over 21 facility. Yeah, he'll have all kinds of requirements with the Liquor Control Board and he'll have to comply with those.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're not, just whatever rules and regulations we have for that, he's going to have to comply with. But I just wanted to make sure, we're not accepting applications for festivals, but I just thought this was an area where we should be helping out one of our small businesses. So, okay, thank you for your feedback. And new hires, my goodness, Debbie Lund has been busy. She hired in the last 2 weeks, 3 people. We've got a new police officer. I think he's starting tomorrow. And we have an IT specialist that we came to an agreement in 2 days ago. And this morning we came to an agreement on a city engineer. And it's one of Ian's classmates and working in a private firm in Seattle. And we're excited to have him. So next is the building official, and we kind of had a wake up moment here. We're operating short staffed in Nick's department, and we got our first bill from our consultant, and it was a lot of money that we're paying to the consultant. So we need to, Debbie's moving on that as quick as she can so that we can get somebody on board, because there's a lot of revenue coming in from that side of it, but we don't want to give it all to consultants. So we're going to get an employee hired as soon as we can. That's all I have. So department heads. Chief Brown, do you want to talk about your new hire and maybe your accreditation process?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, so we've got a brand new hire starting tomorrow. We were able to get him into the academy on the first week of May. So he's going to be with us for about 2.5 weeks and then bounce off to Burien. And if all goes well, he'll be on his own by December. And we continue to work with Debbie. We've got interviews going every single month to kind of build up our list and give us a good selection of candidates. And we're hoping to continue moving through that. And accreditation is going really well. We're at about 90% of what we need to be. So we reached out to our state organization and they assigned us a mentor that started yesterday. He's a captain with Bremerton PD. And They've been reviewing our files so far. There's 100, like we've talked about, there's about 137 standards. And so far we're good to go. So I'm pretty pleased. If we stay on track, probably midsummer, we will have that accreditation under our belt.
Exciting. Thank you for sharing.
You bet.
Mr. Dorsey, do you have anything to share this evening?
No, I don't think so.
All right. The sun went down, so now you can see. All right. Mr. Bond?
Yeah, I wanted to give an update on a couple of projects. The downtown master plan for the downtown sub area, as well as the environmental impact statement for that project, is nearing completion. I'm expecting to release a final draft EIS and the final draft plan here in the next, hopefully by the end of this week, but maybe early next week, we'll have that up on the website, and we'll certainly send you a link so that you can view that. The hearing on the sub-area plan is scheduled for May 4th at the Planning Commission, and that will be the final public hearing on the downtown sub-area plan. And then it would come back to the City Council for final adoption. The Parks plan is continuing slowly but surely. We're really, I think, right now it's just hard for us to focus on both the Parks plan and the downtown plan. We're trying to get the downtown plan wrapped up by our June 30th grant deadline. And then we will try to wrap up the Parks plan. And then, as I mentioned during our agenda item tonight on amending the code concerning the comp plan application deadline, next week you will see a draft, or you'll see the comprehensive plan docket for the 2021 comprehensive plan amendment cycle. So that will be coming to you at the next meeting. But I'm really hopeful that some of these projects that have been going on for the better part of a year will be behind me soon, so that I can refocus on other activities. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I'll be meeting tomorrow with the KRCC Land Use Technical Advisory Committee. We are trying to finalize the countywide planning policies, and there are still just a handful of sticking points that we're trying to work through. I'm coordinating with Councilmember Ashby and the mayor on, how forcefully to push on some of these issues. And so I discussed most of the issues with you at the March work study. And so I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of what your positions are on things like urban growth area expansion, centers, and specifically rural growth, and how much growth should be directed to rural areas. But hopefully we'll be wrapping that up in time for the May deadline. And Mark and I have a joint meeting of the transportation folks and the planning folks here in just a couple of weeks to try to go through the transportation element. So hopefully we'll have draft countywide planning policies for you to review in the near future. That's all.
Thanks, Dick. Mr. Crocker, is there anything going on in finance?
There's always a lot going on in finance, but nothing new to report. Other than that, we're excited to have an IT specialist accept the city's offer, and they'll start May 5th. Adding an additional person to our IT department is huge. It's pretty incredible that we've been operating under half an employee, one employee for as long as we have. So actually having some support and redundancy is going to be incredible for the city as we continue to move into this new era of IT. And IT is nothing but growing for cities and counties. So very excited to have a new person on board.
Because nothing ever broke when Steve was gone on vacation.
No.
So you just have to wait till next week when Steve comes back. So, anyway, thanks, Noah. Yeah, Clerk Reinerson. Anything to report?
Not at this time.
Okay. Ms. Archer, you don't have any new hires at your law firm by chance?
I do. Is that news I can share?
We'd love to hear about it if you're ready to share about it. I think some of our council
Absolutely.
members love to hear this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's fair game to share. We at Inslee Best were able to snag the talent that is Jennifer Robertson to be on our a member in our firm. So she will start with us May 1st. She's wrapping up her solo practice. So we will be able to continue to provide you with the service that you have grown to expect, the two of us now. So.
Great hire. You know, got our two favorite attorneys under one roof. So
Yes, and big thanks to you, Mayor, for making this happen.
anytime. So, all right. I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else to share, Charlie? No. All right. With that, we are to our second citizen comment period. Brandy, is there anyone, member of the public, that wishes to address the council at this time? You need to use the raise your hand feature, and Brandy will bring you into the council meeting.
Yes, there are two people wanting to comment, so I will bring the first one in.
Okay, and you have 3 minutes, and Brandy will give you a 30-second warning when your time's about to run out. So, and go ahead, please identify yourself and provide your comment.
Okay, it's Robert McGee again, 2065 Bay Street. I just with the decisions you guys have made tonight, I hope that you guys are extremely transparent with the community, because it really sounds like you're heading down the path of debt and you're heading down the path of some sewer and water increases. So I would just ask, if that's the route you're going, that you be extremely transparent with the community so they understand what you're taking on their behalf. I'd also just kind of want to get on the record. You brought up Mr. Chang maybe having a conflict of interest, and I would agree that that was a conflict of interest. In fact, I think there's 3 conflict of interest with the pedestrian pathway vote, and that would be Mr. Chang. It's a little disingenuous for people on the council to say that he doesn't have that conflict of interest when he clearly works for WisDOT and is a community member. I would find that a conflict of interest. In addition, Mr. Clausen, while he works for Kitsap Tran as the executive director, his facility stands to gain from the pedestrian pathway landing at his ferry. That is a clear conflict of interest. And Ms. Ashby, while less egregious, does have a residence that will be in the very near vicinity of the pedestrian pathway. I find those to be a bit of a conflict of interest when we're making decisions on the pathway, as they stand to gain in different ways individually there. On a more positive note, with you guys receiving the American Recovery funds that are coming in, I'm hoping that you do utilize some of those funds other than infrastructure. There are other uses for those funds, and it may be a source for Mr. Nail. I don't know if that's an option for you guys, but you were talking about funds for him, and maybe that's an option through those dollars. So you're not using it through the other funding mechanism you discussed earlier. But I just wanted to get that on the record. I feel there's some conflict of interest with that vote, and I guess I'm just putting on the record my protest of that vote. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, thank you for your comment, and go ahead and bring the next person in, Brandy. Okay. And if you can unmute yourself and identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Chuck Huck. I'm a business owner here in the community, Whiskey Gulch. I just got a few things to say. I had some notes and stuff like that, but it's kind of an emotional thing for me. Obviously, having a business that's going to be highly affected like this. And on a personal note, I care for the people in this community, and I care for Annapolis people. And one of the things that I feel is pretty disgusting is that you showed that you could go around Randy Jones' home and avoid taking a 43-year residence home, yet you're going to plow right through it. I don't even know how you sleep at night doing that. And then watching your finance committee meeting, it's so disturbing that you guys would go and often, like you guys do, put the cart before the horse. You go and you pay $800,000 for these homes in this section when you don't even have a plan of what you're going to do and how you're going to get through there. You don't have enough money to do it. Why would you go and pay $800,000 for homes when you can't finish a project? And then another thing, it seems smaller, but to me, it wasn't small. The fact that you go and you pay all this money for these homes, and you guys don't even know how much it's going to cost to demo them. You don't know an exact cost. I mean, you guys know you have to demo them. You pay all this money to go and demo them, and you have no idea. I watched a finance meeting, and a couple of you are like, oh, 100,000. Some are like, no, we're not even close. I'm like, that much money and you guys don't know? That is absolute and complete incompetence. I mean, that's, and the conflict of interest is obvious. I mean, it's completely obvious, you know, and I'm just, and when you talk about the money, you're talking about all the money going into the community, and you guys, when you think about the possible recession, of course the money everything is going to be up because there's stimulus checks out there. People are excited to be out again. You guys aren't taking into account that, guess what? There'll probably be a dip too. There'll probably be a V. I think we all know that. This isn't going to continue like this. But I know what you guys are trying to sell the community. Like you try to sell them the whole time. And I also know you guys don't care about me. I know you don't care about the businesses down here. I know you don't care about anything in Annapolis. It's very, very obvious. I've given you my phone number a bajillion times. Nobody contacts me. Nobody talks to a local business member. I have 35 staff members that are going to be affected by this. I have neighbors that are going to be affected by this. I have friends that are going to be affected by this. But you guys, seriously, I don't know. It's shocking. I've been around politics my whole entire life. My grandparents, everything. And they cared so much about making sure that every individual was taken care of. And that's not what you guys are about. You guys are little Seattle.
Thank you for your comment. A little glitch there.
Sorry.
How much time did Mr. Huck have remaining, or was he at the end of his 3 minutes?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Any other members of the public wishing to address the council, Brandy? And use the raise your hand feature.
Nobody has used the raise a hand feature.
Okay. It's now 8:31 and we will adjourn this.
I have for the good of the order.
Oh, I'm sorry. It is on the agenda too. I don't know what I'm. All right. Good of the order. Go ahead.
I have a good of the order. And I thank the citizens in Port Orchard for allowing me the privilege of serving on the city council for the last 7 years. I will be retiring at the end of my term in December. And I just wanted the council to know that. I wanted the public to know that, because I believe on this Thursday, the city is hosting a session on elections. And so I thought it would be an ideal opportunity. If there's anyone out there that is interested in being a city councilman, there will be an open position this fall. Prior to making my decision, I spoke with Councilman Rose Pepe about swapping my 4-year term for his 2-year term. And he was very enthusiastic about that. And I believe, it's my understanding that Councilman Rose Pepe will be filing for the 4-year seat, which means the 2-year seat will be the open position. So that's what I had to say. That's my for the good of the order. And again, I thank the citizens for allowing me to serve them the last 8 years.
Councilmember Ashby, I greatly respect your I've served with you for a number of years, and I respect your decision to not continue, but you'll be sorely missed. You've been a tremendous asset on our finance committee, on transportation issues. I really will miss you. But
you know, when I thought about this in the mid 80s, when Mr. Clausen moved to the city council, I took over his position on the Civil Service Commission. So in the mid 80s, I spent 6 years on the Civil Service Commission. From 91 to 97, I was on the Planning Commission. I went back on the Planning Commission in 2004 to 2010. And then I've spent the last 8 years on this city council. So I'm really proud of the service that I've done for the city. Very grateful that I've had this opportunity, but I'm ready to retire again. So that's what I'm going to do.
I wish you well.
Beck, I would just add, it wasn't mid 80s, it was early 80s. It was pre exact, so.
Beck,
We
I
will-
hope you're not going too far. You are going to be so missed.
You definitely will be missed on the council. I wish you well.
Thank you.
No question. Always appreciate your thoroughness.
Councilmember Chang?
Just want to remind everyone, if you're 16 or over, there is a COVID mass vaccination on Thursday, the 14th at First Lutheran. There are still signups online, and if you've had problems finding a sign up, as I know many people have, they are available. The website is kitsapcovid.com. And Beck, thank you so much for your service. You've been a real example, and even though I've loved working with you and sitting next to you, so you will be sorely missed. Thank you.
The date is Thursday, the 15th.
Thursday, the 15th.
Yeah, for the max vaccination site. So, all right. Any other good of the orders? And
Well, mine isn't nearly as much as Beck's was, although I don't believe it was good, but I appreciate it. And I just wanted to let everyone know that Kitsap Transit, we launched the Southworth Ferry. We had the Saturday event on the 27th that went extremely well, I think, with the COVID restrictions. The mayor was there and Councilmember Lucarelli, thank you for joining us on that day. And the ferry launched its service on the 29th, and we did have a couple days with a problem with the boat, but other than that, it's been doing quite well, and I've been pretty impressed with the performance of it. So just a piece of information.
Thanks, John. Councilmember Lucarelli?
Well, we didn't quite get through all of the committee reports. There's just a little bit left over, and the city council retreat was on that list. Are we still meeting in person?
We are, and Steve is working hard on the ability for our ability to we'll live stream it, even though you guys will be in person. And so we're working out all the little bugs we have with the new equipment we have up there. So I'm hopefully optimistic that we are gonna get there. It's just some of the equipment may be different than what we're used to, or different platforms. So, but the plan is to live stream it. Obviously it'll be recorded, and the plan is, for social distancing reasons, just have the city council and the consultant and I, in the council chambers. It is a public meeting, so we do need to open the building to the public for that meeting, but I'm hopeful that the public will, there won't be any opportunity for public comment at it. And so hopefully if somebody wants to observe it, they can, we'll provide that in a live stream and a recording. So thank you for pointing that out.
I'm assuming if the public does show up at the meeting that we have the appropriate social distancing in place. Or will.
Yes, we'll have, and we'll have strict, we have a limit to the number of people we can have in the room. And if we exceed that, then we can't have the meeting. So, but it is because the council, when a quorum gathers, we do need to comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. And one of the ways we can do that is live streaming. All right, other questions? All right, I think now I'll attempt to adjourn the meeting again. All right, have a good evening, and we'll see you soon.